Hello everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And it's time for more multi-topic extravaganza, Vince.
Yes, indeed.
We have lots more questions to answer, and we're gonna do as many of them as humanly possible in half an hour as usual. You know the drill, we've been doing this for a few weeks now, and I don't know how many more weeks we're gonna be doing this, probably just a couple. Yeah, just a couple. So we're gonna get through as many as humanly possible. If you haven't asked a question yet, you should have done that already. No, we'll keep taking them for a little bit, but I don't know if we'll be able to get to everything. There is the multi-topic appetizer, and the link to that is in the description. Leave your questions there, and make sure that you only ask 2.
Appetizer Ganza.
Multi-appetizer Aganza. Here we go. Vince, are you ready for the first question for today?
Let's skip to the last one and then do the rest.
I'm going to get confused if we do that, I don't think. Okay.
That's a fair assessment.
All right, Hunter BB asks, Cap and Vince, question. That's the idea. That's the name of the game. What is a comic book character that you don't like, but everyone else seems to like? Have we done this one yet?
I think we've done one a lot like this. A lot
like that? Yeah, I think maybe we did already kind of do. Well, mine always used to be Deadpool, but I've come around a little bit. Yeah, I don't know that I have one that everybody likes. That I don't. I mean, I don't much care for the Green Lantern, but I'm open to it. You just haven't seen that thing yet. I just haven't seen the one that I like that much. Yeah. I don't much care for Green Arrow, but I mean, I didn't really like Longbow Hunters, but I see why people do. I mean, it's not my thing. Like, I think it could become my thing. You're just not. I just haven't found that thing. Yeah, but yeah, and I've had that before, but I can't think of any like really currently where there's like just a big thing that people are like, oh my god, this is such a big deal. Like I had that a while with Doctor Who, but it was less because I didn't like it and more because it was just so relentlessly popular, and I'm kind of over that now. But because there was a time where I just had a really hard, and like I was watching it before that, but it was just like almost like oppressively, you must be watching this, and I don't know. I had that for a minute. I don't anymore. Would you agree with me? Yeah. That when something gets so ridiculously popular, that it gets difficult to get into it because people treat even the mundane stuff like it's gold. Oh yeah, yeah. Some of it is just if people seem kind of blind with a thing and they can't be even remotely objective. Where you're supposed to like this just because everybody likes it and it's popular. And everybody knows this about me. I am mainstream guy. I don't dislike things just because they're popular. But I do sometimes have that thing that you sometimes have, Vince, too. To be fair, I mean, this is a thing that I will sometimes do where if too many people are trying to get me to watch a thing, I sometimes have a hard time getting excited to do it. Like, once I finally do, I'm like, okay. So, sometimes once I finally do, I'm like, okay, that is great. You know what I mean? But, I mean, I won't, like, avoid it just because it's popular. But sometimes it's kind of like people are just too in your face about a thing, and it's hard to get, like, excited. I don't even know why exactly that is or what it is. I don't know if it's just, like, this weird rebellion thing that some of us are kind of building. Is this just, like, a human being thing, Vince? Is this just a human condition thing where if it doesn't matter how great a thing is, if everybody is pushing you too much, you're just like, well, I don't want to have to like be just like everybody. I don't know what it is though. I feel like maybe there's kind of like a line that gets crossed. The difference between the people you know and the culture you're in saying, this is fantastic and I think people should watch this. And then you go, wow, everybody seems to like this. Maybe I'll give it a shot. But then when people are like, you haven't seen that yet? Yeah, what's wrong with you? You're living under a rock? I have physically picked up a person and thrown him from a room because he did that to me. He said, I just want to tell you everything I know about The Departed. I'm like, don't even tell me anything. Don't tell me anything. Okay, but this! And then he shouts it out. So I pick him up and I throw him out of the room. I warned him. Well, I've talked about this a lot. I mean, the problem is that always affects your perception of a thing. And you know what I think it is? I think that's it. I think it's, at least for me personally, I think what maybe it is, you've hit on it, is when I don't get to discover a thing for myself, sometimes I feel like I've been almost robbed of something. And it's not like it's anybody's fault, but it's like I would be much more excited about this or inclined to want to see it if I didn't feel like my perceptions were already skewed because of the build-up. Where it's like, And I mean, like, I try not to let that affect me when I finally look at it. I feel like I do have pretty good skills when it comes to trying to being at least somewhat. You're never going to be completely objective about anything. When you're talking about, you know, especially when the idea is, do you like this or not? That's immediately a subjective question.
The feeling is different than the understanding.
Yeah, but it does skew your perceptions of a thing, and you have preconceptions now, and it makes it impossible for you to go in, you know, with no expectations of any kind. And so it's gonna. It's like with some things like that, I'd almost rather just wait like 5 years when it doesn't matter anymore, and then look at it, and then it's a lot more like getting to see it with, you know, new, completely fresh eyes.
Yeah. You know, that's how I got into Doctor Who, is because everybody said, wow, this is really good. So I said, well, maybe I should check it out. But everybody said, I can't believe you haven't seen it. You need, like, I think that's it. You need to see Memento. And I went, I'll see it eventually.
Yeah.
I did see it. It was good. But I didn't have that thing because people were on my ass. On my backside.
Josh Turnbull asks, do you think there should be more fictional characters with physical disabilities, such as pre-New 52 Barbara Gordon, Professor X, or Detective Ironside? Who is Detective Ironside?
Oh my god, I used to know that.
I thought you were going to be like, how do you not know that? You need to read about Professor, about Detective Ironside. I don't know.
You haven't heard of Professor Ironface? Here's your deal.
No.
Neither have anybody else.
He has repulsor blasts and a big head. Anyway, well, what do you think? How do you react or respond to questions when we talk about like there's not when people say there's not enough of a particular kind of person, when we're talking, be it minorities or whatever it is, do you ever think how are there not more of this kind of person in a fictional thing?
Well, I mean, for the most part, you don't see like, when you're out and about in the public, people doing very active things, you don't see a lot of disabled people doing very active things. I mean, you have people behind the scenes like Barbara Gordon. Well, you know, pre-52 Barbara Gordon, as he said. But you have those people that are kind of facilitators. You know, you can have these supporting characters, but in an action movie, you're probably not going to have a guy that can't walk. So I think if you get into the drama section,
you're a hover chair.
It's true.
These hover chairs are awesome.
When people are like, "What about Professor X?" I'm like, yeah, but he's a facilitator.
Yeah. He doesn't generally get. Whenever Patrick Stewart is actually involved in an action scene, I always find myself thinking, "Wow, that's a very different thing for him to get to do right now." Because he doesn't get to do that very often.
Like, you know, even some characters, or even some like character actors, I guess, who get to be leading males in like dramas, but then they get into action movies and they're always like the wise older do. And then you get something like Colin Firth in Kingsman, and you go, oh wow, he was really pretty suitable for that role. That was fantastic.
Because of what you're talking about, it's a difficult thing to pull off and make. You seem like something that could actually happen even in the context of something as fanciful as you know, superhero comics. As with anything, I say you never want a thing to look forced or to look like you know, shoved down your throat. Look, we're making this great statement thing. It always works best when you know, when you look at something like Oracle or whatever. It always works best when it's a character where the disability or whatever that you know, extra unusual thing is that, you know, real people have to deal with and is, you know, problematic, and something that would be nice to make a statement about if we're doing it in like a thoughtful kind of way. It's always best when that comes from you know, a story place, character place. It seems like an organic thing that just happens, and then when people look at it. And I guess what I'm saying is, it's best when somebody almost has to come out and remind you that, oh, look, we're talking about disabled people. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. I guess we are doing that. That's, you know, but when it's like, here's a book that's all about this, and it's just like really obvious and kind of forced and generic, that's when that's when I have a difficult time saying we need more of them.
Yeah, I don't.
You see what I'm saying? Like I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, I hate to think that we have to have some sort of a quota.
Yeah.
For certain things, where it's like we need more of this kind of, you know, minority, or we need more people of this religion, or you know, of this viewpoint, or whatever it is. But you've got the distinction is okay, maybe we do, but you want to make sure they come from the right place, is what I'm saying. I feel like immediately you're almost coming at it from the wrong attitude when you say we need to try to get people to make more of this kind of thing, when you kind of just hope that you get more of a diversity of... My distinction is diversity of writers and artists before diversity of certain kinds of characters, because then that comes, you know? So the idea is you get somebody that has the experiences to come in and write some, or at least something to say, or, you know, they've studied up on a thing, or they've read a lot about a thing. So somebody to come in and, okay, I'm going to write about a blind superhero, or I'm going to write about a character in a wheelchair, and they have, you know, something to really bring to the table, as opposed to, we don't have enough of those, so we're going to try to get somebody to do that.
Yeah, which, I mean,
because that could just be stale and obvious and kind of preachy, and then that doesn't do anything.
Like, to some extent, if you have an office worker who never needs to leave the office in your thing, like Criminal Minds, save for certain key episodes for that character, the one who sits there and does all the hacking really could be in a wheelchair. I mean, I wouldn't question it if she was. I would say, fine, whatever.
But I mean, I'm always really super impressed when you can have somebody that has a major disability and you can actually make them a superhero that goes. I mean, it's a difficult thing to do, but when you can do it, it's amazing. You know?
There was a Legendary. There was a comic series called Legendary from Dynamite that was a bunch of like steampunk versions of superheroes that were like old superheroes, and they had the Bionic Man, who was a guy missing arms and legs, and he had these things that he could attach to himself because it's steampunk.
Yeah.
And so here's this paraplegic. Wait, that's not the word I'm looking for. Well, here's this amputee, four times amputee, and he has these things he can strap onto himself. I'm like, that's really interesting. That's fascinating. I want to know more about that.
And I mean, the reason that people want to see more of that kind of thing, obviously, is so that more people feel like they can relate to certain kinds of characters. Now I feel like, depending on like personality traits and what people are about and that kind of thing, that I can relate to all kinds of different people, even if they, you know, look and act nothing like me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need all my superheroes or heroes in a story to be men. I can relate to women sometimes. You know what I mean? And women can relate to men sometimes. But go ahead.
I think that there's also kind of we do kind of see people with like personality disorders and things a lot that don't always have to be villains.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So like, I was reading a comic book. I realize his question might not have only pertained to comic books, but there's a Fantastic Four Year 1. In the first few pages, Reed Richards says, I've diagnosed myself with a mild form of autism. I'm working on a cure.
Oh, fascinating. I didn't know that, yeah.
I thought that was such an interesting idea, that here's this guy who's famous for kind of ignoring everything around him that's not science. And, now we have somebody recognize that that's probably a personality disorder. I mean, we've had a lot of people in the past say that Batman's crazy or Batman's obsessive. I mean, maybe we can start saying that there are people in these TV shows.
Kind of, and actually sort of diagnose it and say it's this big, and look, here's, this person can still be functional and do things and you know, be able to be a superhero, but at the same time actually study their character through that lens, and isn't that interesting? But what I was going to say is, even though I feel like people can potentially relate to lots of different kinds of people, regardless of whether or not they're exactly like them or have exactly their issues or just look like them or whatever. I also think that when it works, it's got to be really neat. When you look at a thing and just, say the autistic example, that an autistic person reading a comic sees that and is like, oh look, that person is like me, if it's handled well and doesn't seem super obnoxiously preachy, and that's all the point is, then it's wonderful when it works. So I guess my point, like it always is, I'm a broken record, is just be thoughtful about stuff. That's it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't care as long as your character's not prohibitive.
Kind of thing when I don't feel like it's being, it's just some kind of an agenda thing.
Like
it doesn't have to be.
I wouldn't necessarily think that Batman should have no arms or something like that. I mean, if he did and there was a way he could get around it, sure. But
or if it suddenly happened to him,
I'm like, fine.
There's a Tick episode where that happens.
Oh, that's a good point.
There's a Tick episode where Tick and Arthur just suddenly lose their arms. I don't think they're saying anything about paraplegics, man.
No,
so I think
they're disarmed. I get it.
They make that joke. Actually, there's this great moment. I'm going to be obnoxious and say a couple things about that episode because I love it. It's called Harmless but Not Harmless, and there's this part where Tick and Arthur are in. There's this part where Tick and Arthur are in the diner, and I'm just going to wait for you. And the police show up, and they're like, because they've been framed for stealing stuff by terrible robots that look nothing like them, and the police say, Tick and Arthur, come out with your hands up, and the Tick says, we can't possibly comply with their demands. We better make a run for it. And that's pretty great. Anyway,
I like that.
All right. Question number 2: do you think that our culture is going in the wrong direction when we Yes.
Only if you listen to One Direction.
Kidding. When we idolize celebrities like the Kardashians instead of focusing on people who do good deeds for nothing more than to help others. I don't want to go real in depth in this. I'm just going to say I agree with you.
I do agree with you. I mean, I don't necessarily understand why people care. Like, look, I love my talent. Not my talent, but I love
your talent too, Vince. You're really talented, yeah.
But I love the people. I love the celebrity personalities, not because of the celebrity, but because of what they bring to the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it might break my heart if Dan Aykroyd and John Goodman turn out to just be terrible people, but I mean, from all accounts I've heard, they're not. But I mean, that's the thing, is that it might break my heart a little bit, but I don't actually actively look into their lives. I don't care. I don't care what Brangelina's been doing.
Yeah.
Or Braniston or whatever.
Yeah, although, and I don't want to go too deep into this. I guess I will throw this out there. I don't know. I have been kind of like leery of even bringing this up at all on the channel, but the Bill Cosby thing is bothering me like crazy.
Oh,
like, yeah. I'm having a really tough time with that. Yeah, I mean, major role model for me growing up, and then, like that's a little different, right? Like when you find out that somebody's just a total jerk, but when somebody seems to completely. Like somebody seemed to.
He's always professed to be a role model.
Somebody embodies a certain set of ideals, and they seem to be completely on the opposite end and do things that are completely morally reprehensible. I mean, like. Yeah. Again, I won't get into this, but that's a thing that sure looks sort of cut and dry. Like, I don't see any way around it. He probably did at least some of the things that you know he's allegedly done, and now he's going to have to actually like go on record under oath and talk about it, and like he's finally being forced to do that. And I don't know, Vince. That was a shattering disillusionment.
I mean, because there's even
that has nothing to do with this question, but you just brought up the whole like, you know, when you find out that celebrities aren't who you thought they were. And that's a little bit different than just that guy's kind of mean, and he seems like such a nice person in all his roles. You know what I mean? Like it's a little different.
I don't look into the personal lives of celebrities. I don't understand why celebrities' personal lives are a thing that people care about. And furthermore,
for the most part,
I don't understand why there are celebrities because of their personal lives.
No, that's the thing I don't get.
And that's the Kardashian. They're famous because they're famous, or what is it that a celebutante, the thing that Paris Hilton coined.
And the thing you always have to keep in mind is that no matter what the reasons you think a person are famous and that people are interested in them, they will always be role models to someone. I mean, there's just no way around it. If somebody is really popular and really famous and has a lot of money, people are going to look up to that and think that's the name of the game. That's how you get successful. No matter what it is, like, I think it's impossible.
It could be a terrible role model, but people still look at them as a role model. I mean, they go, "Wow, I really want to be like that guy who stabbed his whole family."
I mean, no matter. I mean, I think that's less likely. But I'm just saying, somebody that just like is completely, you know, obviously ultra selfish and doesn't care about anyone and is mean to everyone, and like that's why people like them, because it's like looking at a car crash and you can't stop looking at it, and you're kind of, and this is a case where you're like kind of pointing and laughing at someone else's misfortune or whatever, and a society kind of thinks that it can all come together and kind of laugh at that person, and okay, they're famous, but the reason they're famous is because they're so stupid and ridiculous and obnoxious, and so it's not really doing any harm to the culture because we're all laughing at them. It doesn't work that way.
I think people are genuinely interested by this stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also don't think that you know, we should all get together and do that, but it doesn't work that way.
You know, and I don't even necessarily prescribe to this like a social pariah thing that people are like, I get to point and laugh at this person. I kind of feel like that's what Tom Green was going for with his show. Like, he was trying to do something so over the top that people are like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not a thing I get behind either. It's I guess when I say it's not a get behind, it's that it's a thing that I find distasteful and I just don't get it.
Yeah. It's
like,
kind of shocking.
If you like it, you like it, whatever. But I don't understand why people think that they need to watch, because, you know, it's fiction anyway. I guess now we are belaboring it, but it's fiction anyway. These reality shows aren't things that actually take place. These people are putting on characters. There are writers on the set that call themselves producers and say this, right, do this. So the fact that people are watching this stuff like it's real life is ridiculous to me. So,
you know, we do have some celebrities, once again, like Bill Cosby, who it's not just their fiction and just their stand-up. It's also like lectures they give and books they write. And at that point, you're talking about people that are, you know, embodying certain, ideals that people hold up as, you know, good and moral and things that people should aspire to. And these are considered to be heroes. And at that point, it's not just the work they do. I mean, it's not just the fictional screen actor work they do. It is who they are. So I mean, like, I think it would be, Vince, somewhat disingenuous to say that it doesn't make sense to not care at all about about celebrities' personal lives, because some of them are famous for the right reasons, or at least you thought they were.
Well, I mean,
you see what I'm saying?
I understand why the Bill Cosby thing is crushing. That doesn't necessarily mean that his message wasn't valid, but it does mean that he's not a good example of his messages.
Yeah, and I mean, but that's just super rough. Well, anyway, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't want to get into that. But
Eddie Murphy even had a bit where he said that Bill Cosby called him and told him he can't use the F word and things of that kind.
Yeah, so, right. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Bozdar Durovic, any chance to see more reviews of non-American comic books? It is, of course, understandable that most of your reviews are of American stuff, and nothing wrong with that. There's a whole other world of comics, and a good comic is a comic no matter what country it originates from. Yes, of course, you're right about that. It's just a matter, sometimes it's just a matter of taste and what we feel like talking about, you know what I mean? The rough thing about what we do is that we try to be as broad as we can, but then at the same time, I don't like to talk too much about stuff that I don't have a lot of knowledge about.
And also, I mean, the people that are clamoring for something, a lot of, like, the majority says, I want to know what you have to say about Batman.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
You got to say what it is.
Now, that's not to say that we only make videos based on what we think like a view count is going to be or something, because I mean, you go back and we've got comic vaults that don't have a lot of views, and we knew that when we made them, but for the 100 people that cared, we made that video, you know what I mean? So we have that. Vince has done more of those than I have, but I'm just messing with you. So you're more likely to review stuff that's kind of more off the beaten path than I am, and a lot of it, once again, is just based on what I'm interested in, what I know something about, and feel like I can bring anything to the table about it all. It is a thing that I do occasionally. People will send me things, and I'll try to, you know, review some underground stuff and things like that. I don't know. I try. I probably don't do enough, Vince. But then sometimes I just feel a little bit like ill-equipped.
Well, I mean, to some extent, if it's like something with 20 years worth of continuity that you need to know about, that's one thing. But if it's a one and done, I don't necessarily think you're ill-equipped. I mean, I think that, as you said, you can relate to certain things. But
yeah, and I mean, I review non-superhero comics some, but I guess maybe it's more interest than anything. My favorite thing with comics is superhero stuff. When it's not superhero, I kind of, with certainly notable exceptions, and a lot of like IDW stuff and things like that, I tend to prefer it to be like a TV show or a movie or something. But I mean, I certainly will. It's not a thing that I like seek out, so it becomes a thing that I have to. I guess the reason I do fewer of them is it becomes a thing that I have to, like, deliberately do just for a video, and not something that I just would have read otherwise. But I don't know. I throw those into like weekly comic reviews and stuff whenever I can. But
you know, to some extent, there's even you look at other cultures, they have such a different standard of what good storytelling is. And
yeah, and that's a lot of what I'm saying is sometimes I feel ill-equipped to look at that. Like, I don't know what the standards are. I don't know what the
if you want a good
modern conventions are.
If you want a good example of that, I mean, read the introduction in Batman: Child of Dreams. So
right.
That's because Kia Asamiya has something to say about the difference between storytelling in Japan and America, and how he has to. I mean, there's a guy that can walk the line pretty darn well.
He also wants to know if I'll do more non-American movies and Superhero Rewind. He says, your review of Diabolic was awesome, and I would love to see you cover more non-American comic movies. Yeah, definitely. Rewind, the stuff that I do for the ultimate, maybe we'll never actually get their goal, of reviewing every comic movie ever made, is every English language and American superhero movie. So if it's in English, it counts as a thing that I have to do eventually. But Diabolic was not one that I necessarily had to do because it's an Italian film. But I just wanted to do that one because Manos had talked it up so much, and it turned out to be really great, and I'm glad that I did it, and I love it a lot. But yeah, so occasionally I'll make an exception and do a thing that doesn't necessarily count, but and obviously all the top 10 lists of superhero movies or superhero TV shows and stuff like that doesn't count either. But they're just for the sake of variety, it's another thing that I wanted to do. So yeah, definitely. And I mean, people always send stuff my way. I've got several things folks have sent me and things that I found in my collection that I'll get to eventually that are not necessarily, American-made movies. So, there's not an American-made movie, man.
I was totally gonna make that joke.
I got there before you could. Dark Knight Fan 75. Have you seen the whole season of Beware the Batman? Will you do a top 10 on it or a review of the whole series? And will you do a review for Arkham Origins? Yeah, I mean, the Arkham games I've already done, the first two, so there will eventually be a Superhero Rewind on all of those. As far as Beware the Batman goes, was that what you saw, Beware the Batman? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so and probably the way I'll handle that when I want to do all the Batman shows eventually, and probably the way I'll handle that one is just like an overview thing as opposed to a top 10. Because it was only, like, I guess 26 episodes, so. This is great. Red Letter Antilles. Is there a Bat vehicle you don't like? By that I mean a vehicle in general, not a specific version of one. I mean, I want to say the Whirly Bat, but then the Whirly Bat was used to such hilarious effect at the end of Heart of Hush. I don't think I can say that.
I would say the Bat Submarine... only because I've never seen it outside of Gotham. Like, why do you need a submarine in a landlocked city?
But, Vince, it has such an intricate sewer system.
Fair enough. So, I've just never seen it outside of Gotham. I don't know. I mean, he probably uses it internationally, but whatever.
That spaceship seems a lot more practical even than a...
Yeah, like you could at least get there
submarine.
From Gotham. Yeah.
That's a really good point. You're right. You never...
Keep it offshore. Have strongholds. Cool. Batman could have a coastal stronghold, and I guess if you're looking at the like the New York version, I suppose, like Gotham being New York, I get it, but it's not like he takes it outside of Gotham very often.
See, it's so funny you say that because in 60s Batman, he's got vehicles in other places that aren't in the Batcave because it's not practical to keep them in the Batcave, and by practical I mean they didn't build a set that big. So the helicopter is on a helipad that's someplace else, and somebody's he seems to pay all kinds of people to keep things for him because he's got the like parachute pickup service, and they apparently are just sitting around all day to go pick up his parachutes, and they have the people that man the helicopter. But the reason I brought this up, Vince, is because he also has the Bat boat, which is just like roped off at a harbor. So he always has to drive there and then climb down the ladder and then get in. It's in a harbor. So if that Batman had a submarine, it would probably be exactly like what you're talking about. It would just be, underwater in a harbor somewhere.
That's fair.
See, we just found a thing in 60s Batman that makes more sense than in any other version. Isn't that great?
Yeah, a bat boat just sitting out in the middle of... That's silly. People can come tamper with your boat, sir. They will... Anyway.
Maybe it's a really secret harbor that nobody knows about. It doesn't look like it, but, Are there any comics or movies that you love to the point that you refuse to reread them too often so that you can be a bit surprised or have a different outlook on a book than you would by rereading it, say, every 6 months to maybe a year? That's fascinating. Do you ever think about it like that, Vince? Where you're like, I don't want to read or watch this too often because... it might grow stale, or my opinion of it will be, you know, not what it was.
I tend to do that with everything I like.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't watch it that often. Like, I've seen Ghostbusters probably more than I've seen any other movie. Well, maybe Blues Brothers. I don't know. That's kind of neck and neck. But, actually, you know what? I've probably seen Ninja Turtles more than I've seen any other movie.
I mean, that's definitely probably in my top 10.
So, I mean, I think Ninja Turtles is something I don't find to get stale, but for the most part, most everything else, I'm like, I still want to think this is genuinely funny, so I don't watch it that often.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But I like the idea of waiting, of like seeing a thing you love and then waiting so that the next time you see it, you'll pick up on things you didn't before or have a different experience. But then there's also the fear that if you wait too long, you'll have such a different experience that you won't appreciate it as much as you did the first time. Like, I guess I'm different than I used to be. I used to watch the things I loved like a couple times a year. Like The Matrix used to be a thing I watched at least twice a year. Back to the Future was like that. Batman '89 was like that. And I think the more I become, you know, kind of a critical reviewer, the more I've gotten to where I see more every time I see a thing, but sometimes I see more negative stuff that I wouldn't have noticed before, and then also just, you know, I watched so much stuff for review that I don't think to go back and watch things like that as much as I used to. So, you know, there's that. But that's really interesting. And I guess now that you say that, there are a few things that I've loved that I've seen in the theater the last couple of years that even though I was absolutely in love with them and maybe even bought them, I've still only seen the once or the twice. Mm-hmm. So to come back to it 3 or 4 years later would be really fun, because it would be sort of like getting to see it again for the first time, even though you know you loved it.
I still don't own it yet, because I feel like this. Guardians. I'm like, I want to wait long enough to where I feel like it's something I need to see again.
Yeah, Guardians I've only watched a couple times. I think I watched it once when it came out, but once again, that was for work. I only watched it again so that I could, you know, get questions from it for my trivia books. So yeah.
And I know that nobody's questioning this, but Guardians of the Galaxy, as opposed to Guardians of Ga'Hoole or Legend of the Guardians.
We get it, Vince. Vince, that's going to be it for today. We are all out of time, and we got through another page, so that's good. We will do at least another couple of these, as I said. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and once again, if you have some questions, feel free to put them in the appetizer. At this point, I can't promise that we're going to get to any of the more recent ones that aren't already on these sheets, but we will definitely look at those questions as potential videos for Geeks Not Nerds later on, so that's a good reason to leave things there. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and feel free to leave us your comments and opinions about the stuff we talked about today. We appreciate all the insightful and interesting questions. We'll see you again next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince, reminding you to support your local comic book store, and apparently use anti-allergy pills. Oh boy, I don't know what happened, but it's suddenly on my face!
See you later.